It's just now 6 o'clock, so thank you everyone for being here on time. We'll call the meeting to order and we'll give our attention to this short video. A very short video.
Due to COVID-19, this meeting will be conducted as a Zoom meeting pursuant to the provisions of the Governor's Executive Order N-2920, which suspends certain requirements of the Brown Act. This meeting is being live streamed on the CCTA website. The chair will call upon members, staff, and other speakers by name. Please speak clearly and state your name before giving comments or remarks. Persons participating via Zoom with their cameras enabled are reminded that their activities are visible to viewers. Members participating by Zoom wishing to speak should physically raise their hand and unmute their mic when called upon. Members should remute their mics when done speaking. Citizens participating by Zoom wishing to speak should use the raise hand feature or dial *9 if participating via phone, and the chair or staff will call upon them at the appropriate time. Citizens will have 3 minutes to speak. A 30-second warning will be provided. After 3 minutes, staff will lower their hand and mute their mic. Participants via phone will be called upon by the last 4 digits of their phone number. It is requested that public speakers state their names and organization, but providing such information is voluntary. Written public comments received in accordance with the COVID-19 Special Notice for Public Comment Guidelines are printed on the meeting agenda. If authors of the written correspondence would like to speak, they should raise their hand and the chair will call upon them at the appropriate time. All written correspondence received after that and during the meeting will be entered into the record. A roll call vote will be taken for all action items. Thank you for participating in a meeting of the Contra Costa Transportation Authority.
Thank you. And now, Terry Ann, will you please call the roll call?
I heard everything.
Yeah.
What is the meeting number?
Mayor Taylor, can you mute your device, please? Okay. Commissioner Arnrich. Commissioner Arnrich.
So
Here, rookie mistake.
No problem. Commissioner. Commissioner Butt.
Here.
Thank you. Commissioner Glover. Yep, see Glover.
He's here. He's just
Haskell.
here. Yeah.
Commissioner Glover. I see you. There you go. Okay. Commissioner Glover's here. Commissioner Haskell.
here.
Commissioner Hudson.
Here.
Commissioner Mitchoff.
Here.
Commissioner Nowak is absent. Commissioner Thorpe.
Here.
Thank you. Commissioner White.
Here.
Vice Chair Kelly.
Here.
Thank you. Chair Geringer.
Here.
Representative Allen. Okay, Representative Allen is absent. Representative Wilson.
Here.
Thank you. Representative Worth. I saw her come in. I see you. Okay. We have Commissioner Nowak absent and Representative Allen absent.
Thank you, Terry Ann. I would like to take this moment to introduce our new members. Recognizing that Commissioner Nowak is absent, I would like to introduce Lamar Thorpe and Holland Barrett White, who are representing Transplan. And I would like to give you the opportunity to introduce yourselves and say a few words. So Holland, we want to start with you.
Thank you. Just want to say that it's my honor to serve in this capacity as commissioner representing Transplan and the city of Pittsburgh. As many of you know, the city of Pittsburgh hasn't served on this commission in over 20 years. And so again, it is my honor. The dedication and commitment that this governing body and staff have shown towards embracing new advanced technology and innovation is very exciting, to say the least. And I look forward to learning a lot from you. As many of you know, I've been to almost every CCTA MTC meeting in the past 6 years. And so to serve in this capacity is a great honor. So thank you.
Welcome, Holland, or Commissioner White. Commissioner Thorpe, would you like to introduce yourself and say a few words?
Hi, good evening. Good evening, everybody. I'm Lamar Thorpe, the mayor of Antioch, and similar to Pittsburgh, we haven't had a seat at the table for quite a few decades, and so we're excited that Pittsburgh and Antioch are participating in this important governing body. Outside of, I guess, politics, I serve as executive director of the Los Medanos Community Healthcare System, and prior to becoming mayor, I was on the city council for 4 years, so I see some familiar faces, and it's good to be here. Thank you.
Good. Welcome, and we have a pretty action-packed agenda, so you're coming at a very interesting time. So the next item on the agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance, and I want to thank Newell in advance for reading the Pledge of Allegiance, or saying the Pledge of Allegiance. If everyone else would mute your microphones. Newell, please lead us in the pledge.
Thank you. Please place your hand over your heart and repeat after me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America
United States of America.
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all, too.
Thank you, Newell. Our next item on the agenda is, excuse me, is public comment. Terry Ann, have we received any public comment in advance?
We have not received any public comment.
Thank you. And is there anyone wishing to speak during public comment on an item that is not part of the agenda? If so, please raise your hand and staff or I will call on you. Do we see anyone?
I don't see any public comment.
Okay, thank you. So we'll move on to the next item of on the agenda, which is the approval of the minutes from November 18th, 2020. Are there any changes, comments, or other from the board?
Move to approve.
Second, Hudson.
So we have that very quickly. Is there anyone from the public who would like to speak on the minutes or on this item? If so, raise your hand. Terry Ann, do we have anyone?
I don't see any public comment.
Okay, so we have a first by Commissioner Haskew and a second by Commissioner Hudson. Terry Ann, will you conduct a roll call vote?
Commissioner Arnrich,
Yes.
Commissioner Butt,
Yes.
Commissioner Glover, can you unmute yourself, Commissioner Glover?
Did you hear me?
No.
Oh, I can hear you now.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Was that a yes?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Haskew,
Yes.
Commissioner Hudson,
Yes.
Commissioner Mitchoff,
Yes.
Commissioner Nowak is absent. Commissioner Thorpe,
Dean,
I'm sorry, what was that?
abstain.
Abstain, okay. Commissioner White,
Yes.
Vice Chair Kelly,
Yes.
Chair Geringer.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously with Commissioner Nowak absent and Commissioner Thorpe abstaining.
Thank you, Terry Ann. And then we're moving on. We have no presentations this evening, so the next item on the agenda will be the consent calendar. Are there any changes?
Madam Chair, I'm so sorry.
Yes.
You know, we're going to go through this again. Can I ask that in the future that the minutes be included in the consent calendar? And if somebody wants to pull them off, fine. But here we go again, and we're going to take a roll call, which is fine. But every other organization I belong to puts the minutes in the consent calendar. And I would ask that for the future we do that.
Thank you, Commissioner Mitchoff. I will work with Terry Ann on that. Okay, so moving on, we will move on to the consent calendar. Do we have any changes, comments, or any other concerns from the board?
I would just move the
Does
item
anybody?
with a comment. If you saw in there, there's
Okay.
nearly $250,000 being paid to CHP. APC really did look at why it was that much money, and it is because it's over a long period of time, and CHP has a tendency to bill late. So it's not like that was what we spend in a month. With that, just some.
Thank you. Does any other commissioner want to have any item pulled from the consent calendar, or do I have a second? And
Second.
then I'll ask. Who was the? Did you catch it, Terry Ann?
Askew?
Thank you.
Yeah, right.
Well, it's her birthday.
It's my birthday.
Commissioner Hudson, it's her birthday.
Her birthday.
So is there anyone who would like to speak or have an item pulled from the consent? Please, from the public, please raise your hand. Terry Ann, do you see anyone?
I don't see any public comment.
Okay, will you please do a roll call vote?
Commissioner Arnrich,
Yes.
Commissioner Butt,
Yes.
Commissioner Glover,
Unmute Federal.
Commissioner Glover, are you on a thumbs up? Okay, thank you. Commissioner Haskew,
Yes.
Commissioner Hudson,
Yes.
Commissioner Mitchoff,
Yes.
Commissioner Nowak is absent. Commissioner Thorpe,
Aye.
sorry, okay, thank you. Commissioner White,
Yes.
okay. Vice Chair Kelly,
Yes.
Chair Geringer,
Yes.
motion passes unanimously with Commissioner Nowak absent.
Thank you again, Terry Ann. Okay, moving on to our regular agenda items. The next item is an informational item that will be presented by Ivan Ramirez to provide us a status update on phase 3 of the I-680 State Route 4 Interchange Improvements Project. Ivan?
So,
There he
good
is.
evening, Madam Chair and Commissioners, and welcome to Commissioner White and Commissioner Thorpe. Looking forward to serving under your leadership the next year. So yes, this is an update that I'm going to provide when we provided the last update in May of last year. Sorry, can you see my screen yet or
No,
not yet? Hold on
no,
a second.
not yet.
Can you see it now?
Coming up. There you go.
Yes.
Okay.
Make your slideshow.
Yes, give me a sec here. I don't know why it's not coming up on the other side. There we go.
Duplicate your screen.
Yeah, I got it. I got it now. Sorry, it's taking a little while. Maybe my
There you go.
computer's gonna. Yes, this is an update on the Interstate 680 State Route 4 Interchange Improvements Project. When we came back in June of this year, we brought up a number of issues that had come up, and I kind of concerned some of the board members. They asked us to come back. Subsequent to that, and here we are towards the end of the year when most of the construction for this year is behind us, and it's a good time to provide an update on the status of the project. So a little background on this project. We started work on November 14th of 2018. We had an engineer's estimate of roughly $80.8 million. The contract was awarded to Brossamer and Wall, and it had an original working day duration of 675. One of the things to note about this project is that the lowest bid, or the bid for which we awarded to Brossamer and Wall, was above the engineer's estimate by roughly $6 million. So that kind of started the project already a little bit behind. as far as money was concerned, funding was concerned, but nonetheless, we proceeded to award, and the total allotment that was approved by the board was $97.7 million. Something's going on with my screen today. Apologize for that. All right, so I'm going to start by daylighting 3 problems that we encountered during the construction season. So on top of everything else that we had to do, which was the normal construction work of oversight and putting payments out, coordination with the stakeholders, and so on, we also encountered 3 difficult problems that we had to resolve. This one is the first one, and it relates to a problem that occurred because we didn't, in essence, the construction team didn't follow what was stipulated in the contract. This area here that you see is the new bridge. This one over here that you see, you barely see it, but that's the old bridge. And part of the work we're doing as a widening of Highway 4, we are going to connect them together. So due to some construction, these bridges are to remain separated because these tendons, we call these tendons, they're very elastic steel, and we have to pull them really hard. And once they're in tension, we lock them in place. And the net effect of that is that this bridge is going to start shrinking and rotating with respect to this bridge over here. As you can see here on this slide, we did not keep the bridge separated for the entire length. So even though we went ahead and did all the steps, the bridge then started shrinking and rotating, and that caused significant, that's the area where you can see that we did not keep the bridges separated, and that went on and created cracks on the existing bridge and cracks on the new bridge. So we had to go to work and find a solution to this issue. The first thing we had to do was separate the bridges, as you can see here on those 2 photos, and then we had to go and explore and find the cracked concrete, the concrete that was damaged. We had to find the solid concrete, and then once we did that, we went and repaired it, and that's where we are right now, where we made the concrete repairs and we are ready to re-stress the bridge after the concrete cures. This is a nice picture actually of the rehabilitation that we did to Grayson Creek. As you can see, this is called hydroseeding, so that the grass and vegetation starts growing. But this second problem occurred here on these areas here. These things are called bank caps, and basically they support the superstructure, the road, the deck, if you will. And what ended up happening in this situation is that the plans call for having epoxy coated reinforcement. As you can see, this green and these purple over here, and what those do is prevent corrosion for happening to the steel in areas where there's a type of marine environment where it's going to penetrate the concrete and cause corrosion. And as you can see, this rebar here, these longitudinal rebars here, and these tie rebars over here, they were not epoxy coated reinforcement. This is how it should have looked at throughout, which was these reinforcement here, all epoxy coated. So what happens is that if you don't put the epoxy coated reinforcement, then it creates a long-term maintenance issue, because then you know that your rebar is not protected, you know that the environment is going to attack it, it's going to cause corrosion, it's going to cause long-term maintenance problems. That was a big concern for Caltrans. So we went to work, and we were able to determine that, in working with Caltrans, that we really didn't need that epoxy coated reinforcement. So it almost was like a big exercise, which we found a very simple solution to. And the reason is because these bank caps are not really exposed to a marine environment. But nonetheless, at the time, we didn't know that, and we thought we were going to have to go back and remove the bank caps from the previous season. They already had traffic on them. And then on top of that, we had to figure out how we're going to take care of the long-term maintenance with Caltrans. So it was a problem that fortunately we found a solution to, and it was minimum impact. This is the third problem that we encountered over the summer. And by the way, these 3 problems are going concurrently at the same time. This is an aerial photo where this is 680. This is going towards the Benicia Martinez Bridge, if you keep going that way. This is Highway 4. And where we have those yellow lines over here, we were supposed to put these huge concrete pipes in the diameter. One was 60 inches, the other one was 54 inches. And the purpose of them is to collect water, because we're putting a lot of new concrete, then it's impervious, and we have to find a way to collect that water before it gets released to the creeks. Because other than that, it will tend to because there's too much water will come into the creek, and then will impact the fish and another thing. So we were supposed to put them in there. What ended up happening is that the contractor sent a notice to us telling us that the excavation there was going to be very difficult because they were encountering really hard rock and also big boulders in the middle of the excavation. So, the contractor put us on notice. We have to go and do our due diligence and investigate the situation. And we actually went ahead and contracted the services of a geotechnical firm, and they provided us with a seismic refraction survey. Very quickly, what it does, it sends waves into the ground, and depending how fast it gets back to the source or where those waves originated, it will tell you how hard the rock is. And in the conclusions, what they told us was that that there were areas where we were going to use unconventional methods of excavation, and what that means is that we have a different site condition. The contractor was going to expend more resources than they allocated during their bid. And part of what it was suggested that we needed to do was blasting to get rid of this excavation and these rocks. And we're going to find floaters. Floaters are big rocks that are in the middle of the sediment layers in the excavation. And also those probably going to need blasting to get rid of. So this is an example of what they call floaters that they ended up finding. That this is a picture of demonstrates the excavation where they're actually hitting rock. This white dust or gray dust that's there, that's just the excavator grinding the rock and creating that white dust. Otherwise, it would just be the color of the dirt over here. So those were indications that we definitely had a problem. And this is if you went out there today and you walk the area of the shoulder, you will see that there's a lot of outcrops there. So there was always an indication that we were going to have problems with the excavation. So one of the things I want to bring up is that, in construction, things can and will go wrong. I think that what makes us stand out is that we actually react to the problems. And I think that that's what allows us to move forward and come up with solutions that provide, most of the time, minimum impacts to the construction progress. So here, what we did, instead of making the excavation, we are going to be constructing something similar to this. This is a basin. It collects a lot of water when it rains, and it just sits there until most of it gets assimilated by the ground, so it doesn't all goes out into some kind of a drainage system. So those were the issues that we encountered. Again, they were doing concurrently in the height of the construction season. And now I'm going to give you some update on some of the things that we have done. This is a girder installation. These are very heavy members. You can barely see, but here's a big crane on one side and there's another one on the other. We closed the highway to be able to park the truck and just move them and lay them at their permanent location. This is what it looks like after we're all done. This is what it looks like when we have put the reinforcement for the deck and getting ready to pour the concrete. We also did a lot of pavement. This is called reinforced concrete pavement, continuous reinforced concrete pavement, where you have rebar along the entire length of the deck. This is not on a bridge, this is just a normal road. And this is what we have, the machine, in case you're interested. This is just the machine. Most of the work is done at night. This is the reinforcement over here. And this is what it looks like when we're done at the end of the night. We also had to construct the median at Grayson. This is an interesting construction that we did. This is the existing, this up here is the carrier. So there's traffic going on over here and there's traffic going on over here. And we have to come back and fill this in order to match the roadway as it comes up onto the bridge. And we ended up using something called cellular concrete. Most of the time we use backfill, which is just dirt that gets compacted. And then we have to wait a certain amount of time so it settles, and then we can begin to construct the roadway. In this case, we didn't have that much time, so we went ahead and used cellular concrete. And this is what it looks like when it's all done. You can see the steps here as we're getting higher and higher onto the height of the bridge. And I'm going to show you some aerial photos of the progress that we have made. This is when we came back to you in June. This is where Grayson Creek was. We had already built this bridge here, these two here, this one here. We were getting ready to move traffic and to these new bridges and start doing the work on the two remaining. And this is where we are right now. We have all the bridges in place. And we did a traffic switch last week. This is Walnut Creek. We had not even started building this bridge in June. And this is where it's at right now. And as you can see on this particular photo, that this is where the bridges are separated. So this one was done correctly and there was no issue with that bridge. This is Solano Way. This is the bridge that ended up being cracked. You see that they had done a lot of work up to June of this year, and very little since, because that was something that we had to address, and it took a lot of time. This is a picture looking in the eastbound direction towards the end of the project. The left lane is basically almost done, that's going to be the HOV lane. So we're looking into opening up about a mile of that left lane. We were expecting to get it done towards the end of this year, but it looks like it's going to happen in mid-January. So going to the budget, which is there's a concern. At the time when we came back in June, we had spent 55% of the original contract work, and the contingency was spent at 84%, which was, obviously we were consuming the contingency at a very rapid clip. Over here, we have the total allotment set at 61%. Well, since we were able to bring the bid items up to 76%, but the contingency barely moved. So that's very good news for everything that happened in the summer. And the construction allotment, it's at 76.3. As far as time is concerned, we have consumed 60%, but we're at almost 77% of the contract course. So what that means is that we're making good progress overall, given where we have been with all the challenges that we have encountered. This is a slide that Commissioner Bott was suggested that we bring back, and this is just to give you an idea of how the change orders have been spent. Most of them are unforeseen field conditions. I mean, they're over $4 million. Almost half of the contingency has been consumed by different site conditions, but we also have requests by our stakeholders, like name it, Caltrans, Water District, and others. We also have had to do some maintenance while we're out there, some other change orders, but this is the big one over here. So in summary, the construction budget continues to be under threat. We continue to encounter issues in the field continuously, and like I stated earlier, we do find a way to solve them and keep moving, but they do have impacts, and they also consume budget. We have also overcome numerous challenges. The plans and specifications have some ambiguities and inconsistencies. There are being construction quality issues, like as I demonstrated in earlier slides, a lot of different site conditions. We have also had to deal with COVID-19 restrictions. There's been a large and impactful people turnover, both on our side, our CM firms, and also on the contractor side. We also have been impacted by the wildfires and the riots. And the reason for that is that CHP, which supports us at night when we're working at night, sometimes they cannot allocate resources to our projects because they have been used somewhere else. And that has occurred with both the wildfires and the riots. And when we don't have CHP support, we normally don't like to work because it creates potentially harder situations. The project schedule, it's trending very well. The critical work at the creeks was completed, which was very important. If we don't complete the creek work, then you have to go back a third season. Obviously, that puts you a year later. And in addition to that, we haven't had any major safety issues. Recordables are mandated to be submitted to Cal OSHA, and there has to be a certain threshold of the severity of the incident, and we haven't had any of this in this project, so that's a very good sign. So with that, I am open to questions regarding this update.
Thank you, Ivan, and thank you for pulling down your shared screen. Are there any comments from the board? Commissioner Arnridge?
Ivan, just again, thank you for an update. We got to see, we raked you through the coals and made you really dig into all this at APC. But really appreciate your expertise. And as you stated then, and I think Commissioner Butt had said this, you know, that you take the lessons learned and it becomes part of the culture of our organization. And this is kind of our, I guess, our third major project we've AAA'd. So really well done, and really appreciate your personal care in the budget, the changes. You take it all personally, and we know that you do an outstanding job digging in. So thank you.
Thank you very much for those comments, Commissioner. Appreciate it.
Anyone else from the board have any comments or questions? I don't see any. Is there anyone, if anyone from the public would like to speak, if you would please raise your hand. And Terry Ann, do we have anyone?
No, I don't see any public comment.
Okay, thank you. So Ivan, again, thank you very much. And I agree with Commissioner Arnridge. It definitely was, you listened at APC and answered all the questions, and that's why the commissioners are ready to move on. So the next on the agenda, the next three items are going to be related to the I-680 high occupancy vehicle lane completion and express lane conversion project. The first item is an informational status update that will be provided by Ivan Ramirez.
Okay, so hopefully you'll be able to see my screen at this time. Is that right?
Swap your view. Swap for presenters review.
Yeah.
Oh, it says swim, quit, unexpected.
Oh, the screen is actually black. There it
There we
goes.
go.
I don't know why it's saying that.
You just got a slow internet tonight. That's all it is. Really slow.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I was wondering why I was having.
Yeah, big time delay in what you're doing.
Are we back?
We're back to the main Zoom screen.
Okay, hold on 1 second. Sorry, I gotta go back and reshare. Share screen, express lanes, boom. Okay, can you see it? Sorry about it. I don't know why I have slow.
You're almost
internet
there.
today. Yeah, almost there. Come on. Okay, there we go.
There you go.
All right, so this is another update. This is the other project. Yeah, we had the two largest construction contracts that the authority had ever awarded at the same time. So it was definitely kept us very busy. This project is the express lanes, like I mentioned earlier. And this one is a little different than the previous project in the sense that when we kicked it off, the engineer's estimate the low bid was below the engineer's estimate by over $6 million. And we awarded it to Bay Cities Paving and Grading, had a duration of 700 days. And when we came back to you in March, we were expecting to finish the project late next year or early the following year. And we came back to you and asked you if you would approve a change order to bring it to completion on December 2020. And we're very happy to report that we were able to achieve that milestone. This is an overview coming out of the bridge going in the southbound direction. And these are some of we installed 17 signs that are going to help manage the express lane once it becomes basically being able to use it. Currently, as we have it right now, it's being used as an HOV lane for 2 people, and it's being tested. So that's what we're telling the public as they drive through this express lane. Because what happened is that we did the construction work for the civil, and then right behind us is BayFa coming in and putting all the systems in place, all the conduits and so on, so that the express lane becomes operational. So we did that as part of this project. We turned it over to them, and that's why the HOV stands as being used for 2 people. So this is a overview of the South Main on-ramp prior to construction. And for contrast, I have put in here a picture of how it looks afterwards. As you can see here, there's 2 lanes as opposed to 1. And eventually here, it's suspected that there's going to be a metering light. One thing to note here is all the planting that we have done here is ongoing in several locations along the project. This is a picture of, not when we started the project, but a picture of when we came back in March, where we were at South Main Street. And this is how it looks now. And once again, I want to highlight the planting that has been done here, as well as other locations in the project. This is an overview of the project near Treat Boulevard. What's it, Treat Boulevard? Near our office, and we did a lot of paving as part of this project, and that was one of the features about this accelerating change order, was that along the corridor there were many areas where the paving was in dismal condition, and that was creating problems because of the water wasn't draining properly, and there was potholing and little debris coming off of the paving. So by doing it a year early, we were able to give it a brand new surface to the public. And in addition to that, the surface that we have put in here, it's called open grade, and that it has 2 benefits. The one is that it's quieter. I think the executive director mentioned this meeting or 2 ago of the improvements that the public feels when you have open grade. But in addition to that, it drains better, so there is hardly any chance of any hydroplaning occurring as you're traveling. Let me go back, because I want to highlight this solid double white line over here. That is to prevent people from coming in and out of the express lane, and that is there at 2 locations on this project, because you want to keep people from coming in and preventing the nice flow that the express lane is going to provide. And as you can see, this is when we turn over the picture from where we were looking earlier. You can see that extends, and it ends just north of North Main Street. But then again, there's another location south of 24 where this occurs. The big improvement that this project had from the beginning was that we were going to eliminate a lane drop-off. So this number 6 lane that we have over here, it's what we have added along this location. And having been a commuter through this corridor for many years, I think that that's going to provide a lot of relief to the traveling public once we get to normal traffic conditions. But we have gotten a lot of feedback from the public regarding that improvement. So obviously it's working even now. And for the commissioners that have been with us for a while, this slide will look familiar. When we came back to you in March, we only have 1 check mark here because Caltrans had just approved the conditions of the 2 people HOV lane and the signage configuration. So we just had gotten that, and we had to do this checklist here. And we have accomplished the PG&E power up on the corridor. We also completed all the work, and we gave the facilities or the express lane, the civil work was completed, and we provided it to Transcorp to do their electronics. We also, MTC also revised their tolling ordinance so they can start collecting tolls once the express lane is completed. The other two are not checked, but that's because BEFA is still working out some issues, but my understanding is that their project should be completed in the spring. Some of the risks that we mentioned at the time that we were concerned about supply and labor, and this risk was mitigated. And the reason is because we followed all the protocols that were provided by Kalosha and others, and social distancing and washing your hands and so on. So there was no issue with anybody on the project being infected or infecting others. We also mitigated the service connections. And PG&E is normally a difficult to deal. They're not responsive, but in this project, through the efforts of a lot of people, a lot of players in the project, we were able to get commitments and follow through from them. So that was very nice surprise to coming from them and to be able to deliver the project. And as far as tolling equipment, this is an ongoing risk, like I mentioned earlier, and hopefully everything will be completed by the spring, like it's currently scheduled. This is another familiar slide. At the time, we said, this change order is going to cost $1 million, but it's going to save $1 million. So that's the commitment that we made. So at that time, we had the construction and management oversight. We were estimating that to be $1.6 million savings. We actually completed that saving at 1.7 million, and we're going to recover some of that in the following item that we have coming up later. We also were predicting $300,000 on change orders that had already been written, and those are time-related or event-related costs, and we actually are projecting to be at 290 now. And some of the bid items that are also time-related, at that time we were projecting 100,000, but we saved 75,000. We paid the contractor $1 million. So the net savings is just over $1 million. So as we promised. So I want to give you some examples of the savings that happen when you get out of the work area sooner. We always have these issues, people hitting. Sometimes you cannot identify them. It costs money to replace them. We also have utilities that we own while we're constructing. We have to pay those monthly bills. There's ongoing issue with keeping the sweeping in place so that we don't have issues with stormwater. And also we have to do regular maintenance as becomes necessary due to normal conditions deteriorating while we have the right of way from Caltrans. So to summarize everything, we believe that this was a win-win-win-win, where Bay Cities, they got the $1 million. Not all of that is profit from them, but certainly they're very happy. The public benefited. We got the express lane a year early. We eliminated the lane drop. We did the paving a year early, so that's a great benefit to the public safety. CCTA wins. I think that we deliver on our promise. MTC also wins because they are going to be able to collect revenue a year sooner than they would have. So that concludes my presentation on this item.
Thank you, Ivan. Are there any comments or questions from the board? I don't see. Oh, Supervisor Glover or Commissioner Glover.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I'm working with a new system today. I just want to compliment you on this work. It's great when we can form these type of partnerships and get things done. So Ivan, I want to thank you and all those folks that you have partnered with to make this happen.
Thank you, Commissioner. And we do have an outstanding team at CCTA, and all of us work together. So it's definitely refreshing on all staff. So I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments from commissioners? Okay, if anyone from the public would like to make a comment, would you please raise your hand? And Terry Ann, I don't see any, but.
I don't see any public comment either.
Okay, thank you. And Ivan, yes, thank you again for the great report and for the great work. It's always exciting when the promises are made and these come in under budget and we save money. So thank you. The next item will be an action item that Ivan will again be presenting on, and it will be to approve the construction work and issue final payment to Bay Cities Paving and Grading. Ivan?
Yes, Commissioner. This staff seeks approval of Resolution 20-33P, which will authorize acceptance of construction work under agreement number 491 as being complete and satisfactory, authorize the release of all retention to the contractor, and authorize staff to proceed with the closeout. Pending the receipt of the project acceptance documentation from the California Department of Transportation. Like I mentioned earlier, Commissioners, the contractor basically has completed all the work. We come to this natural place where we have to accept their work as substantially complete, and that allows us to proceed with the closeout with Caltrans and also for them to get their retention back. So staff seeks approval for this item.
I did it. I will unmute. Are there any comments or questions from the board?
I'd move the item.
I'll second.
So Arnrich, are there any members of the public who would like to make a comment on this item? If so, please raise your hand.
I don't see any
Carrie Ann?
public comment.
Okay, thank you. So we have a motion by Arnrich with a second by Commissioner Glover. Terry Ann, will you do the roll call vote?
Commissioner Arnrich,
Yes.
Commissioner Butt,
Yes.
Commissioner Glover,
Yes.
Commissioner Haskew,
Yes.
Commissioner Hudson,
Yes.
Commissioner Mitchoff,
Yes.
Commissioner Thorpe,
Aye.
Commissioner White,
Yes.
Vice Chair Kelly,
Yes.
Chair Geringer.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously with Commissioner Nowak absent.
Thank you, Terry Ann. And moving on to agenda item B3, Ivan will now present an item to ask for approval to execute an agreement with WSP for construction management services.
Thank you, Chair. So yeah, this is where staff seeks recommendation, authorization, sorry, for the chair to execute amendment number 1 to agreement 448 with WSP with the reduction in the amount of 1.352, $1,352,380. Sorry about that, for a new agreement value of $8,866,644 to provide additional CM services during the plan establishment period, extend the agreement termination date from December 31st, 2020 to December 31st, 2023, and allow the executive director of designee to make any not substantive changes to the language. So commissioners, one thing I did fail to mention is that the savings that we provided for the change order were net of some a big change order that we had to implement, which was the planting of the landscape and also a plan establishment period of 3 years. And that's why this agreement is being extended. This is the team that provided construction management services on the Expresslands project. And, you know, they're going to go ahead and stay around for the plan establishment period, but they're also giving back $1.3 million because they're not going to use it. So this is part of that savings is being reflected on this item today. So with that, we seek your approval, staff seeks your approval.
Okay, any comments from board members before I ask for public comment? Okay, seeing none, is there, if anyone from the public would like to make comments on this item, please raise your hand.
Commissioner Arnrich, did you want to speak on this item?
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, sorry, Chair Geringer. I just wanted to say,
Go ahead.
Ivan forgot to mention something, you know, particularly for our new board members. We have a saying here, and I think Randy really sold us all on it. It's promises made, promises kept. That's why we're doing these changes, because you made a promise and you kept your promises.
Thank you very much, and happy holidays to everybody. Thank you.
And I don't see any other public comment or commissioner comment.
Okay, may I have a motion?
Move approval.
Second, Bob Butt.
Okay, and was the motion by Commissioner Glover?
Yes.
Okay, so we have a motion by Glover and a second by Commissioner Butt. Terry Ann, will you conduct the roll call vote?
Commissioner Arnridge,
Yes.
Commissioner Butt,
Yes.
Commissioner Glover,
Yes.
Commissioner Haskew,
Yes.
Commissioner Hudson,
Yes.
Commissioner Mitchoff,
Yes.
Commissioner Thorpe,
Aye.
Commissioner White,
Yes.
Vice Chair Kelly,
Yes.
Chair Geringer.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously with Commissioner Nowak absent.
Thank you, Terry Ann, and Ivan,
You're
thank
welcome.
you for all of those presentations. Moving on, our next action item is the presentation by Terry Ann Glover to reinstate the Salary and Benefits Ad Hoc Committee and to execute an agreement with Koff and Associates to perform a total compensation study. Terry Ann?
Good evening, Chair and Commissioners, and welcome to our two new commissioners, Thorpe and White. This item is brought before you every 3 years to provide an opportunity to adopt a salary and benefits compensation plan for the upcoming 3 fiscal years. The current plan expires on June 30th, 2021. We know that these are uncertain times and there's a lot going on, but Randy and I discussed the commitment to do this every 3 years, and that time is here again. Seeing that a total compensation study may take 12 to 16 weeks to complete, we want to ensure that there's adequate time for the study and for the Salary and Benefits Ad Hoc Committee's review and input in order to seek approval by June 2021. The study seeks to survey all active authority classifications except the executive director against comparable positions with agencies selected for the study. During the prior study, the board adopted 9 comparator agencies consisting of the Bay Area Congestion Management Agencies and the Metropolitan Transportation Commission. We anticipate this to be a pretty straightforward study and will ensure that we are competitive and remain an employer of choice. Previously, the ad hoc committee was established for the purpose of providing policy input, review, and development of recommendations from the study for authority board approval. The board is responsible for appointing 5 commissioners to the ad hoc committee. In the past, it consisted of the authority board chair and vice chair, the administration and projects chair, and the planning committee chair, along with 1 additional commissioner. But this is left to the discretion of the board and will be a different approach this year due to some of the roles currently overlapping. The ad hoc committee will likely meet 1 to 3 times in 2021, and it will likely be at this time in a virtual format. For the total compensation study, I did solicit quotes from our current on-call human resources consultant, Regional Government Services, and then Koff and Associates, who's a consulting firm that had previously handled many of our prior studies. The quote from Koff was more competitive, and the team has a vast experience and knowledge working with similar agencies from our list. Staff recommends that we reinstitute the Salary and Benefits Ad Hoc Committee, that the board appoint 5 commissioners to the ad hoc committee at their choosing, and then we authorize the chair to execute agreement number 557 with Koff and Associates to conduct the total compensation study. And the ultimate goal is to adopt a salary and benefits compensation plan for authority employees for the period of July 1st, 2021 through June 30th, 2024. That concludes my presentation. I'll take any questions and nominations for the Salary and Benefits Ad Hoc Committee that you have.
Okay, so are there any comments or questions from the board? Or do I have someone who would like to make nominations for the 5 commissioners to be appointed to the ad hoc committee? And Commissioner Mitchoff?
I'd like to continue in that role. I have served in the past, and for continuity's sake, I think it would be helpful.
Just as a point of order, Chair, do we also look at the ex officios? I see Deborah Allen's got her hand up.
That was my question.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, for some reason I don't have the raise hand function on my screen anymore. That was my question. Thank you, Commissioner Hudson, is whether ex officios can actually serve on that committee.
You do have to be a voting board member. In the past, we have done the chair and vice chair of the board, which would be Geringer and Kelly, and then the chair of the planning committee right now is also Kelly. But next in rotation would be the Board of Supervisors and be Mitchoff. And then Commissioner Butt is the APC chair, and then, so there's not a quorum issue. We would recommend that for the 5th seat, that be Commissioner Glover, since he doesn't sit on either one of the subcommittees, the APC or the PC.
So the answer to the question was that thank you very much, Terry Ann.
Yeah, no, yeah. it
Was that no, it's
Short
it's
answer is
great.
no.
Yes.
No.
Yeah.
So any other questions, or do I have Terry Ann has laid out what the previous Commissioner Hudson?
Yeah, just to be clear, what I'm looking at is nobody there from East County until you threw federal in the bunch. Federal's representing the East County then. And I was actually going to ask to the chair because I believe it was Lamar Thorpe said, you were telling me what you did with does he do stuff that's financial or whatever? When you were announcing your introduction.
No, I said that I was the executive director of the healthcare district.
Okay.
I'm not a bean counter, sorry.
Okay, no, and it was answered, actually, I shouldn't have brought, but it's like, I don't want to miss an opportunity to make sure every RTPC is covered. But at the last minute, after I put my hand up, they said, oh, Federal Glover for number 5. So it's too late.
Thank you.
So are there any other nominations, or do I have a motion to nominate so that we can vote on Thank you, Commissioner Arnerich. Do I have a second?
Second, Haskew.
Haskew. Okay, and is there anyone from the public who has a comment? If you would raise your hand.
So Madam Chair, who is being nominated?
I will, thank you. I will repeat it. So, and Terry Ann, anybody from the public?
No, I don't see any public comment.
No.
No.
Okay, so the motion by Arnerich and the second by Haskew is to nominate Chair Geringer, Vice Chair Kelly, Commissioner Mitchoff as Chair of the Planning Committee, and Commissioner Butt as Chair of APC, and then as the member at large, Commissioner Glover. And so if there aren't any other questions, Terry Ann, will you call the roll call?
Commissioner Arnerich,
Yes.
Commissioner Butt,
Yes.
Commissioner Glover,
Yes.
Commissioner Haskew,
Yes.
Commissioner Hudson,
Yes.
Commissioner Mitchoff,
Yes.
Commissioner Thorpe,
Aye.
Commissioner White,
Yes.
Vice Chair Kelly,
Yes.
Chair Geringer.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously with Commissioner Nowak absent.
Thank you, and thank you
Thank
to
you.
all of thank you, Terry Ann, for a great report, and to everyone for serving on the ad hoc committee.
Yes, thank you.
Don't turn on my mute. So the next action item on the agenda is approval of an employment agreement. And so on behalf of past chair Julie Pierce and myself as the current chair, I'm requesting approval of an employment agreement with Timothy Hale for employment as the authority's executive director with an effective date of December 27, 2020, and an annual salary of $270,000. The initial term will be for 3 years through December 27th, 2023, with the option for renewals for additional periods of 1 year. Are there questions or comments from the board, or do I have a motion?
Madam Chair, I move the item.
Second.
So we have a motion from Glover and a second from Arnerich. If there's anyone from the public who would like to make a comment, please raise your hand.
I don't see any public comment.
Thank you. Okay, Terry Ann, will you please call the roll call vote?
Yes, thank you. Commissioner Arnerich,
Yes.
Commissioner Butt,
Yes.
Commissioner Glover,
Yes.
Commissioner Haskew,
Yes.
Commissioner Hudson,
Yes.
Commissioner Mitchoff,
Yes.
Commissioner Thorpe,
Aye.
Commissioner White,
Yes.
Vice Chair Kelly,
Yes.
Chair Geringer.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously with Noack absent, and congratulations to Tim Hale as the next executive director.
Yay.
And we will miss you, Randy.
Thank you. Randy's,
See you later, Randy.
Randy's waving
Congratulations.
goodbye. Very exciting. So yes, thanks Terry Ann, and yes, Tim, congratulations. And I think that it's safe for me to say on behalf of the CCTA Authority Board that we're excited, all very, very excited to have you on board and to have this decision made. And we all look forward to working with you as we move the organization forward. So Tim, it's not on the agenda, but do you have any comments, or would you like to say something?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair and Commissioners. I really appreciate this incredible opportunity. Really excited about leading the next chapter of CCTA alongside with you and building upon our legacy and Randy's legacy. And one of the reasons why I came to CCTA was the culture and also the amazing things that CCTA is doing. And we certainly want to continue that momentum, especially in the pea shooter style, like Randy always says. and we just, I really appreciate you. We have a wonderful board, staff, consultants, and together with our teamwork, we'll continue to redefine transportation in Contra Costa County and make sure that it's accessible, inclusive, sustainable. And we also want to continue to foster our culture, leverage the innovation program we've built over the years that Randy's built over the decade, and enhance our collaboration and build upon our success. So thanks again, and looking forward to working with all of you.
Yay. So I don't know if you can see Tim, but there are members of the public doing, happy dances and things like that. So did any other board members want to make a comment or Commissioner Glover?
Just to say congratulations, Tim. We're looking forward to working with you. So much has taken place over the last decade, and you've came on board somewhere within that decade. And certainly I think that your viewpoints are so much in line with the philosophy of the agency that is just the right fit to take over and continue the legacy that has been set forth, in particular when we talk about the innovation that is going to lead us into our future.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you. Commissioner Arnerich?
I echo all of that and ditto. I would just say to Tim, thank you for lowering the average age of our organization. 2 new young board members, it's about time. So it's really exciting. I know I and several of us were on the original committee when we came across Randy Iwasaki. We were surprised somebody like that would actually apply to our little tiny agency. But boy, what a ride it's been for 10 years. And Tim was handpicked to come in with that public-private experience, former Caltrans, but a lot of private experience, and has just helped lead the way. And it's going to be an exciting next decade here. So Tim, welcome aboard in this new role. Thank you.
Thank you. And then I think I saw Commissioner Worth and Commissioner Mitchoff following Commissioner Worth.
Well, thank you, Madam
Or
Chair.
anyway, whatever, Amy.
Ex-former, whatever. Oh, no, thank you, Madam Chair. As you know, ex officio members don't get to vote on matters before this board. And this is one of the votes that I really am sorry that I couldn't cast an enthusiastic eye for you, Tim. But I just wanted to say how excited I am that you're going to be serving as the new head of CCTA. A big part of what you'll be doing, what you've already been doing, is the partnership and working with the other CMAs around the region to represent, Contra Costa County. And Randy set a really high bar, and I think that he did a fabulous job of building and enhancing those relationships. And I know that your CMA colleagues are all really thrilled that you are going to be at the helm of CCTA. And so I just really want to thank you. I remember when you came on board, and I'm thrilled that you stayed, because your first few months here, Julie and I, we were dragged you up and down the halls of Sacramento. It was 110 degrees outside, and we were advocating, working on lobbying on RM3. And you were amazing. You caught on so quickly to the issues and the nuances and the subtleties and the advocacy efforts, and you were just a rock star. So we're so fortunate to have you in this position. I really look forward to working together with you.
Thank you so
Thank
much,
you.
Commissioner. Thank you.
And Commissioner Mitchoff?
Thank you. And it is hard. I'm having to say goodbye, as is federal, to our county administrator this year. And then on top of that, to you, Randy, although there's never a goodbye, we know you'll be around. But I guess I'm at that point in my career where there are a lot of changes. And I was listening on the radio today to Congresswoman Jackie Spear, who I still think of as that young woman on the tarmac down in Jonestown. But I believe I read recently she's 70, which is the new 30 as far as I'm concerned. But my point being that it's just we've got young people coming in, and I think that's important. It's just hard for some of us who've been around a while to have to say goodbye to such dear colleagues and friends and people who've gotten us so far. Today I was in Martinez around 4, and I thought, well, I won't be going home on Highway 4 to get to 680 because it's always packed. And no, it wasn't. And it wasn't because of COVID. It's because of all that work that Ivan was talking about and all of you have done. And that's the blend of our senior members, meaning long-termed, long-tenured, and our new members. So again, Tim, we're all looking forward to working with you, and we'll be here to help, and we want you to bring your creativity and innovation, and look forward to the years ahead. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Commissioner.
I'd like to point out that Tim and I live very close to each other. I'm the closest living commissioner to our new executive director.
We're practically neighbors.
So Vice Chair Kelly, I saw that you had your hand up.
Yeah, just briefly, Tim, I'm very excited about having you as our new executive director. I want to echo what all of the other commissioners have said. And I think the strength of an organization is to show that we can have a good transition, a strong transition. And I think this is certainly proven with your position now as executive director. We'll miss Randy, but we welcome you with, all arms. And I'm really looking forward to working with you.
Great.
Thank you, Commissioner.
So, Commissioner Butt?
In my years of elected service, I've come to dread transitions. And sometimes they work out, but sometimes they are disasters. And I just want to say that this doesn't feel like a transition, and I think that's a good thing.
Well said.
Yeah, thank you very much.
So Commissioner Hudson?
Yeah, just Tim, a word of warning. If we are back in Washington, D.C., and we go into Morton's and the maitre d' says, "Oh, Mr. Hale, you're back. Do you live around here?" You're going to hear about it.
I can't deny that statement. Thank you.
Thank you.
Let's all look forward to the day when we can go to DC and sit down
Yes.
at a restaurant.
That's for sure.
I was just thinking, yes. So ex officio member Allen.
Yes, so I said all the nice things I had to say about Randy at the last meeting. So I'm just gonna say, watch that video if you didn't catch that. And Randy, I really do wish you well, and I know you'll be around. But thank you again for everything. And to Tim, I look forward to you. You have big shoes to fill, but we know you can do it. And I'm really excited to move forward with you in the executive director seat. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner.
So Commissioner Haskew, happy birthday again.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Yes, I'm relatively new on the commission, and I have learned to really appreciate all that the commission does as a team, and it is largely due to the fact that the staff does everything largely as a team, and that comes from the top. And so thank you very much, Randy, for setting a good model. Tim, I fully expect you to make us work our little all off because you've got all these wonderful new ideas, and I'm looking forward. Change is my middle name, and I'm looking forward to using it. Thank you.
Thank you. And any other commissioners before I see if there are any? Monica.
Yes, I'll just be short and really quick about it. Randy, thank you for your years of service and hard work. Really appreciate it. And Tim, congratulations. Looking forward to working with you in the upcoming years.
Thank you,
Great,
Commissioner.
thank you. Thank you. And anyone else? Commissioner White.
Thank you. Just want to use this opportunity to say I was most excited about serving on CCTA to work with the legendary Iwasaki, but it looks like I'm a little too late. But I want to thank you for all the work that you've done in our communities to improve the transportation network here. I think that even from an innovative perspective, you've been working to engage young people into the conversation by leveraging new technologies. And so I thank you for that. And I wish you the best of luck in your future endeavors. And Mr. Hale, I look forward to working with you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Looking forward to working with you. Welcome.
Thank you. And so anyone else? And Commissioner Thorpe.
Yes, since Commissioner Barrett spoke, I guess he's now set the standard for the new people, right? So I don't know Randy, I don't know Timothy, but I look forward to working with you, Tim. And Randy, I've met you in passing, and so you're almost somewhat of a stoic figure, in that I've seen you speak at public places, and I've seen the arrows be thrown at you. And so you always handled it with grace in the few occasions that I got to see you speak. So I wish you the best in your next journey. And I look forward to getting to know Mr. Hale as we get started here. So thank you for your service.
Thank you. Welcome.
Great. And so I think we've gone through all of the commissioners. Somebody will kick me under the table if we haven't, but are there any members of the public who would like to speak? And if so, please raise your hand.
We have Debbie Toth.
Okay, great. Welcome, Debbie. I had her on the screen.
There we go.
Debbie.
There you go.
Thank you, Chair and Commissioners. I just want to say, Mr. Hale, you had me at accessible. I am so in and ready to work with you, and I'm excited about what is to come. So thank you.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Debbie.
Any other members of the public?
No, I don't see any other members of the public.
Great. Well, thank you very much. And Tim, we could stay here all, well, no, we can't, but we could stay here for a long time welcoming you and congratulating you, but I think we will move on to the rest of the agenda. And so the next action item on the agenda is a presentation by Matt Kelly on the Richmond area and Pittsburgh Bay Point area community-based transportation plans. This, I think I said it, but it is an action item. So thank you, Matt.
Yes, thank you, Chair Geringer and authority members. And I don't know how I follow up that last item, but congratulations, Tim. Can't wait to work into the future with you here. So Matt Kelly, Senior Transportation Planner here at CCTA. I've got Greg Goodfellow from PlaceWorks Consulting Firm. We're here to present the Richmond and Pittsburgh Bay Point Antioch area community-based transportation plans. The goal of CBTPs is to improve mobility options for low-income communities around the Bay Area by bringing together community-based organizations with transportation agencies with the goal of identifying these neighborhoods' most important transportation challenges and then developing strategies to overcome those. Those strategies that were developed as part of this were guided by project working group and steering committees for both areas that were made up of local agency staff and elected officials. Projects that were identified through the process do qualify for funding from MTC under the Regional Lifeline Transportation Program. And then Greg will talk about how we addressed COVID in the plan recommendations as it kind of fell in the middle of our process. But we want to stress that these are 10+ year planning documents, and they focus on basic mobility needs within the communities. So most of the ultimate recommendations we think are valid during and beyond the pandemic in place. And we just want to note that during the draft review period, we have received specific comments regarding both pedestrian needs in West County, as well as on paratransit and senior services in these two CBTP areas. And we will incorporate those comments, and on the paratransit side, we will feed that information that we gained during our outreach into the countywide accessible transportation plan that is currently being developed by the county and CCTA. So I'll now hand it over to Greg Goodfellow from PlaceWorks to provide a summary of the Richmond and Bay Point Antioch area CBTPs. Greg?
Thank you very much, Matt. Thank you for commissioners for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm going to share my screen and open up a presentation. Matt, do I have sharing options? I don't know that I do.
Yeah, you should.
You should. Yeah.
Okay. Oh, there I go.
You're a co-host.
1 second here. Oh, there's my daughter's math homework. Let me just pull up. Okay. All right. Are we seeing the introductory slide?
No, we're not seeing your screen. Greg, I can share my screen if you'd like.
Oh, here we go. I'm sorry. How about now?
Yes.
All right. I apologize for that, folks. Let me just get it from the slideshow. There we go. Am I now in slideshow view?
Yes, looks good.
Okay, I apologize, commissioners. All right, quick background. I know many of you have seen this from my previous presentations. What is community-based transportation planning? Well, early in the aughts in 2001, MTC did a couple of studies, white papers actually, and found out that improving travel needs for neighborhoods that are, quote, susceptible to transportation gaps requires a very ground-up community planning approach. So what are these neighborhoods susceptible to transportation gaps? They are now what are known as COCs, communities of concern. These are census tract areas with low income households, households that are below poverty level, minority households, those with a lack of car ownership, they're rent burdened, they're not English speaking, and a couple of other factors that lead into these susceptible census tracts. So what's a CBTP? These are collaborative efforts between these COCs, the communities in those areas, transit operators and congestion management agencies to identify mobility challenges. And the recommendations within CBTPs become eligible for MTC's Lifeline Transportation Program. So it's a feedback loop between the Lifeline program, studies to understand recommendations and get those recommendations eligible for funding. Okay, as Matt mentioned, we performed the outreach for these CBTPs before the pandemic hit. and perform the analysis afterwards. What does that mean? It means the community feedback, which is so key to any CBTP, does not reflect changes in mobility due to shelter-in-place orders. However, in the analysis afterward, COVID-19 impacted, of course, the financial feasibility of so many projects, most of them transit projects, and therefore the rankings in these CBTPs, given that feasibility, both traditional implementability and financial feasibility, are used to rank projects. However, we found in looking at transit use after the COVID pandemic that disadvantaged communities still rely on transit. They will do so in the future, and they are key to quality of life for disadvantaged communities. So, and we're looking at this 10-year planning horizon. We've spoken to MTC, working with other CBTPs. They are entirely amenable to revisions based on the return to normal or quote new normal conditions, and the manner in which COVID has impacted our rankings for our recommendations. I'll get more into that in the coming slides. Our study areas, Richmond, again, it's the Richmond area. It's not Richmond itself. It includes San Pablo, unincorporated areas to the north, part of El Cerrito. You can see those hashed areas. Those are the communities of concern. Those are the census tracts that are have a high number of low-income households, and B, a combination of those other factors that lead into community challenges. Our study area is a little bit wider than those COCs, and that's to pull in BART stations and other transit areas that we know are going to be relevant to recommendations and mobility challenges. Similarly, for Pittsburgh Bay Point, we have our hash marks for those communities of concern, and then that larger area to pull in, excuse me, BART stations and others. And again, there are a couple pockets of COCs that are outside the major group. This area includes parts of Bay Point, most of Pittsburgh, and also Antioch up to A Street. First big step, as many of you know, was to do a sizable existing conditions research effort for both CBTPs. We looked at so many different mobility factors, vehicle availability, pedestrian collision density, youth and seniors, and of course the existing network. These are a small example of the many factors we looked at for the existing conditions research. This is all included in appendices to the documents. Community outreach. This is the core to a CBTP. This is, you know, if you look at MTC's guidelines for CBTPs, this is what's absolutely required. But an entire diverse group of outreach efforts are considered acceptable. You know, at the direction of Martin Engelman early in the process, we decided to stray from the traditional workshop and get more into the community itself and actually do interviews, actually do interactive mapping at what we call pop-up events. We went to Senior Brown Bags, we went to the Richmond Youth Council meeting, we went to the Greater Richmond Interfaith Program Community Lunch, to the Food Bank of Contra Costa and Solano. We had an amazing afternoon at Los Medanos College at their Mustang Day, talking to students and young adults who take night classes, young mothers. And again, these are just a sampling of the outreach we did. All right, how do we prioritize the recommendations that came out of those outreach events? What we ended up doing was creating a scoring system based on 4 criterion that we worked out with our project working group. And we scored those on from 1 to 5. Criterion 1, how well does a recommendation reflect community priorities? Criterion 2, how well will it actually increase access? 3 and 4 are more practical. Criterion 3, is it financially feasible? Criterion 4, how well or how easily can it actually be implemented? And here's where we'll get into the issue of COVID. We ended up creating 2 scores. The first is what we call the area need score, and that's the average of criterion 1, that was how well does it reflect community priority, and criterion 2, how well will it increase access. The second is what we call the project potential score. That's the average of 3 and 4, financial feasibility and ease of implementation. Now, why did we not just combine the 4 criterion together to get a single score? Well, what we found in working with our subconsultant Fair and Peers is that the feasibility of transit projects based on COVID brought those scores down so low that transit was at a disadvantage in its scoring. So what we wanted to do was create two separate scores that reflect the need of transit projects to make sure that they are accounted for in this report. Ultimately, what we call the high need and high potential recommendations were those that scored 3.5 or more in terms of both area need and project potential, excuse me. High need recommendations scored above a 3.5 on the area need score, but below 3.5 on a project potential. I want to stress that we don't call these high need but low potential. We just call these high need to make sure that they're accounted for in this CBTP, and that, like all the others, they'll become eligible for funding. We just wanted to make clear that there is a separation of these two types of projects. A quick overview of findings in Richmond. We split our types of projects into active transportation projects as the first group. I'm sorry if this map's hard to read, but you'll see a number of different types of projects. We heard about the need to upgrade areas in the unincorporated areas for ADA accessibility in Montalban Manor and Tara Hills. We looked at increasing bicycle and pedestrian facilities along McDonald Boulevard through central Richmond around Nickel Park. We found out through our project working group that, you know, in the future, we're going to do there's going to be a redevelopment of the Jade housing complex. And what we're going to really need to do is look at an ADA accessibility plan for bike and pedestrian use around that housing project. That was an example of working with the project working group after hearing a few things from the community. And we also had heard tidbits of needing to upgrade bicycle facilities around Kennedy High School. When we brought that back to our project working group, we found out actually a lot of that has already been talked about in the Richmond Bicycle Plan. Why don't we combine these two things and create this combined bike upgrade? And that's that pullout map you see of this bicycle path that will connect a couple of parks with Kennedy High School. And then to the right of the map, excuse me, you can see a couple of the high need projects that came out of this. Again, these are the ones that didn't have that highest potential. They'll be a little bit more difficult to implement. Those are improvements to the Barrett and McDonald Avenue BART undercrossings. Again, that would demand a lot of interagency coordination, be very expensive, but these did come out of the community a number of times. Same thing with the Pennsylvania Avenue BART overcrossing. And you know what was interesting is that Commissioner Butt in our presentation to this, to WCTAC, pointed out that he is very concerned and has heard a lot about sidewalk upgrades in the area. We had also heard about that from community members, but in a much more piecemeal manner, you know, a block here or a block there. I took Commissioner Butt's recommendation to the city of Richmond, to their infrastructure group, and we worked out the idea that a really wonderful recommendation would be creating a program whereby at point of sale for homes, sidewalk inspections become required. And any repair that's needed is paid for, is completed by the city, but paid for by the seller. And that money goes into a revolving trust fund for sidewalk repair. And again, that was a great example of taking some ideas from the community and then hearing from our working group or our WCTAC members to create a recommendation. So Commissioner Butt, thank you very much. That's going to go into the final report. Public transit projects. Again, you can see there are high need and high potential transit recommendations that are on this map are not very geared towards program changes. They are about shelter upgrades along bus routes. And, you know, in the report, we make a case that these have to be NACTO and ADA accessible bus stops and improvements along these major routes, excuse me, leading up to Fred Jackson Way and through the north. These are some of the highest used AC transit routes in Richmond and the study area. And again, the higher need projects, which would be more difficult to implement right now, basically due to these financial feasibility issues, have to do with increased frequencies of some of the routes we heard about from the community, Route 76 and 376. As I mentioned earlier in presentations, we heard from seniors that Westcat Route 19 should be extended just a couple more blocks to serve the Social Security office directly, so that those who have difficulty walking or in wheelchairs don't have to get up the rest of the hill to Social Security. And then closing gaps in the city's R Transit by expanding holiday and weekend service and improving coordination with East Bay Paratransit. And again, these are just a few of the recommendations that are in this report. Finally, school safety projects. Working with community members, found out about some of the schools that everybody believes need to have improved access and safer access for students. Verde Elementary, Perez Elementary, and of course, John F. Kennedy High School, we heard a lot about. Pittsburgh. Active transportation projects here really come down to safer pedestrian and bike projects along some of the major corridors and intersection improvements around Pittsburgh High School. A lot of our feedback came out of our Los Medanos Community College outreach involving railroad corridor. This was another example of bringing recommendations back to the working group, finding out that what we should be doing is coordinating with Pittsburgh ATP plan, which just came out and has a lot of wonderful recommendations. We also heard that West 10th and Antioch is used as a cutoff for a lot of drivers who go way too fast. We need to put some traffic calming there and some intersection improvements. And then again, some of the higher need, but at this point difficult to implement recommendations would be improving security along Delta de Anza Regional Trail with lighting, vegetation removal, cameras, improved sight lines, and then installing a Class 4 separated bikeway along Harbor Street. Again, these are absolutely important projects, but they did not make the high need and high potential classification at this point. Public transit projects, similar. This is more about making sure that high use routes are safe and easy to use with NACTO and ADA compliant shelters. Again, taking this back to our PWG, we found out that Tri-Delta does have a great program of adding in what they call half barrel shelters along their routes. So let's coordinate with them to keep that moving. We also had heard from seniors at the Antioch Senior Center that they wanted improvements with paratransit in order to get them to match the hours of traditional routes. And what we found out was there is this existing, let me move my photos. There is this existing Tri-Delta Try My Ride campaign or Try My Ride program, which clearly a lot of people aren't hearing about. So we changed that recommendation into, you know what, let's get Tri-Delta to improve their campaigning, their information campaign for these projects, for this Try My Ride campaign, to make sure seniors know about it and make sure they have access to it, they understand how to use it. And then school safety projects. Bel Air Elementary in Bay Point, Highlands Elementary, Parkside Elementary, and Pittsburgh High School. We heard so much about safety issues around Pittsburgh High School that go beyond just safe routes to school, as well as Belshot Elementary School in Antioch. Again, these are just a sampling of the total recommendations in these reports. Any comments and questions?
Thank you very much for that presentation. Are there any comments or questions from commissioners? And Commissioner Butt.
First of all, I want to thank you for taking to heart my comments about pedestrians and sidewalks and integrating them into the report. You know, we just saw that report for the first time at WCTAC on Friday the 11th, and public comments were due on the 15th, and here we are on the 16th, and you've already incorporated some of those. So I appreciate that, Matt. But I'm still gonna climb on my soapbox and talk about pedestrians. They're kind of the you know, they're kind of the people without a voice. You know, we have big organizations that you know, the bicycle lobby, obviously the transit lobby is huge. and you know, the automobile lobby and all that, but nobody really speaks out for the pedestrian. And in the Contra Costa countywide bicycle and pedestrian plan that we adopted, I don't know what, a year ago, a couple of years ago, it noted that 10% of all trips are pedestrian, and for trips less than a mile, 27% are pedestrian, which is almost as much as by single occupancy vehicle. And you know, the advantages of having safe and walkable sidewalks is huge. It's not just a transportation issue. It's a safety issue, personal safety issue. It's a public safety issue. It increases property values. It's sustainable. It decreases greenhouse gases. You know, all those kinds of things. And I think too often we just forget that when we're talking about transportation. You know, we deal with everything that has wheels, and we forget about those legs and those feet. And I just, you know, want to make a pitch to continue thinking about this and utilize the one transportation mode that probably is the cheapest, quickest, healthiest mode we have. And we need to keep working on it. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Mitchoff?
Thank you. And as my colleagues who serve on the planning committee know, and staff knows, I still have very grave concerns about the outreach. And that isn't a criticism, because I know it's difficult to reach out, especially during this COVID time. But we really need to at least go back and do more outreach to our senior community. Senior centers are but a small fraction of where seniors congregate and where we can get information. And I know Debbie Toth is on the line. I have spoken to her, and I know Mr. Engel is on the line and others, but we have reached out to the senior community because a lot of seniors are not at senior centers, and they are reliant on us for transportation. And in order to get a more accurate picture of what the needs are of the senior, and, you know, let's call, you know, senior makes them sound like old decrepit people. I fall into that category, and no offense to my fellow colleagues, but I believe about 2/3 of you fall into that category too. We can still get around, we're still active, but there are those who will need this service. And if grant dollars are going to be applied for, we need to have a much more accurate picture. So I don't know what that entails or involves, but I know there are resources out there that can help staff and our consultants to get a more accurate picture of what our senior community needs. Thank you.
Okay, anyone? Commissioner Arnerich?
I echo what Supervisor Mischoff said. You know, it's an extraordinary time, and I would look at this as a perfect starting point. And you know, it's taken a long time to get us to really focus on these communities of concern. And I think the basic principles are here, right? They're looking at the right things, creating priorities that are real. The links as the economy restarts are going to be even harder for those communities of concern, because the economic pressures are just horrific. But I do hope that this is just our norm. You know, we ought to have at the minimum, this is an update every year on this, regardless of who's pushing or funding. This ought to be our priority. And as well as every time this report comes out, it should go back to all those jurisdictions, their councils, their board of supervisors, to the engineering departments, so that they see this, and then they can make sure that it's integrated in each of their communities to make sure that this gets done and looked at every single time. I think this is a great start. Thank you.
Thank you. So any other commissioners before I ask for public comment? Okay, are there any members of the public who would like to speak on this item? If you'll please raise your hand. And I see Debbie Toth.
Yeah. Okay. Great. Thank you, Chair Geringer and commissioners. I'm Debbie Toth with Choice and Aging, which I did not say before because I was so excited to hear somebody say accessible when talking about transportation. I lost my mind and forgot who I was. Here we are talking about transportation. I want to point out, and I want to echo obviously what Supervisor Mitchoff's comments were, and I want to sort of lift up something that Commissioner Butt was saying, and I'm sorry, Commissioner, Supervisor, Mayor, I'm going to get all the titles wrong. I apologize. It's also the 7th night of Hanukkah. Happy Hanukkah, everybody. But I want to say you were just one step away, Commissioner Butt, from the next statement, which was 1 in 4 Americans age 65 and older fall each year. And it costs a tremendous amount of money, not to talk about the death toll and the hospitalization that then happens and the disruption to family and life. And sidewalks are a big contributor to that when you have uneven sidewalks, not to mention there are other things like we begin to lose our capacity to see in the same way. And so when there are differences in steps or there are potholes or various other things, it makes it a fall risk. So I think that that's really, really important. But I want to point something out as Commissioner Mitchoff tonight, when she reached out to me to talk to me about this, and I looked at these 2 studies, and by the way, there were, I don't know, just pieces of the studies, not the whole studies that the index showed. But in both of the cases, when looking at Richmond and Pittsburgh studies, both of them talked, the transportation and transit profile talks about approximately 55,000 commuters aged 16 years and age over in the study area travel to work by personal vehicle. Like, we don't even talk about frail elders and people with disabilities and all these other folks who actually use transportation and need to get around. When it summarizes, it says an active transportation network includes a mix of bicycle and pedestrian types. So it goes into bikes and peds in addition to these wheels. And I just think that we aren't intentional about thinking about everyone in our society, and we should never become unable to get from point A to point B, whether we become disabled or whether we age out of a transportation system. It's not something we should be doing. And I really hope that these concepts and these thoughts make it to our ATS and continue to build with the Transportation Authority and in Contra Costa County around how we want all members of community to be able to get where they need to go. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So any other member, Matt, do you want to respond or answer?
I want to point out just a couple of things just to build on what Debbie and member Butt said. So these are very small plans, very small budget, very small scope. So we did have limitations about the level of outreach we could do. We had to cover a lot of needs in the community, but the authority is aware of these issues. And as Debbie mentioned, there is an accessible transportation study going on right now, being led by Peter Engel and John Cunningham from the county. So we want what we learned to feed up into that much larger, much more thorough effort. So it doesn't stop at the CBTPs, it keeps going. And same with on the pedestrian side, our planning department is kicking off a countywide pedestrian needs assessment in the late winter or early spring. So that's going to take a look at the entire county. It's establish a database of sidewalk gaps, sidewalk condition, lots of things that affect everybody the second they step out their front door. So we want to let you know we are focused on some of these more nuanced items that are in the CBTPs, and we'll be diving in deeper. And then our recommendation tonight, in addition to approving the 2 reports, does include instructing CCTA staff to work with the communities to find grant monies in order to fund these improvements. So we do want to make it clear that the authority is working with the communities to try and make sure those improvements actually get implemented.
Thank you. And I think I saw, Peter, did you still have your hand up?
Yeah, I just thank you, Chair Geringer. I just wanted to mention with regard to the accessible transportation strategic plan that Matt had mentioned, and for the rest of the commissioners, both Chair Geringer and Commissioner Hudson sit on the Policy Advisory Committee for that study, and so they're following it very closely. And we are aware of the recommendations and findings of these CBTPs. I want to try and let you know that as an agency, it's kind of good that we're as one agency doing both of these or all of these studies together, because we can communicate easily and work through these recommendations. Our planning department has new staff, and they are fully engaged in the issues of pedestrian activities and the condition of pedestrian facilities, which really will help in the long run, as you know, with seniors who are still active and can walk, give them an opportunity to walk to, and people with disabilities as well, walk to bus stops rather than have to rely on ADA paratransit service, which is obviously a higher cost item, and then some of those resources can be used for other items. So from the Accessible Transportation Strategic Plan, working with Debbie and other folks, we're looking at whole county-wide issues, trying to provide overall recommendations and strategies to help all levels of from active seniors and people with disabilities who are still fairly mobile to folks who have serious conditions that really struggle with being able to get out of the house and find mobility options to find solutions for those. So I just wanted to give you a level of confidence that as a whole staff, we're working together to try and solve some of these issues. And I think you'll see some of the strategies that come forth after the first of the year through the Accessible Transportation Strategic Plan, that there's some cooperation here that we can really try and solve some of these issues in the future.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any other members of the public who wish to, Commissioner Mitchoff?
Thank you. I just want to, so are we going to do more outreach, or we're not going to do more outreach?
Well, staff's perspective, we don't have any more budget on this item. So it's as defined by MTC, we have completed the CBTPs, but I think as Peter mentioned, we will continue this through other venues.
Well, will the reports, will they dovetail? I mean, I don't want the right hand doing something different than the left hand. Am I hearing that as work continues under the accessible transportation, this tool, this CBTP or whatever it's called, will just be one part of it? But I guess what I'd like is in the future, when this opportunity comes up again, that there be a note in the file, Mr. Hale, and this isn't a criticism of Mr. Iwasaki, but we need to do better outreach to our senior population. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. So I see Commissioner Glover, you have your hand up.
Just a question in terms of the participation. What was the turnouts like as you hosted these outreach meetings?
And the PlaceWorks did collect that sort of information. Certainly wasn't in the thousands, but I think it was in the hundreds.
Okay.
Yeah, Commissioner Glover, excuse me. Each outreach event that we held, we did different types of interactive exercises. Some of them were, had maps out and, color-coded sticker exercises, put a red dot at a bad intersection or help us draw a line that it's difficult to get to. We had amazing days at larger, grip lunches and at Los Medanos Community College. As I was saying earlier, Mr. Engelman wanted to get away from the traditional workshop where even if you had a large turnout, people might be scared to speak or less, more about watching what was happening rather than get involved. So we did these much more interactive pop-up events and actually created interviews to speak to individual people to get these narratives of challenges. So, our focus was more about quality than quantity. And all of this is appendicized in the documents, each of these interviews, et cetera. So I think we spoke to many people, but not as many if we were just going to do a huge survey or a bunch of workshops. But, the feedback was qualitative and was more personal. And,
well, and I would imagine since March, you haven't had a whole lot of access to our community members.
Yeah. And, I've mentioned this before. One of the challenges has been, if you look back at past CBTPs since the program started, which I've done, and I've assessed, what worked and what hasn't. Past CBTPs have been literally have been an area of 8 blocks where you can just dive right in and find out everything. Now they've expanded to what you see, which are 4 jurisdictions, with over 100,000 people and with the outreach budget that we're allotted. Obviously, it's difficult to capture everybody. And
thank you.
Sure.
Okay. Thank you. So any other public comment or commissioner comment? And I don't see any hands raised. Terry Ann, or yeah. No. So staff is asking us, do I have a motion to approve the 2 CBTPs and also to direct staff to work to find grant dollars to implement?
Move approval.
Second by Butt.
But Terry Ann, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Arnrich,
Yes.
Commissioner Butt,
Yes.
Commissioner Glover,
Yes.
Commissioner Haskew,
Yes.
Commissioner Hudson,
Yes.
Commissioner Mitchoff,
Abstain.
Commissioner Thorpe,
Aye.
Commissioner White,
Yes.
Vice Chair Kelly,
Yes.
Chair Geringer.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously with Commissioner Mitchoff abstaining and Commissioner Nowak absent.
Okay, thank you. And thank you for the presentation, Matt and Greg, and for all of the discussion, public discussion. And I believe staff has heard, and Peter did mention that this will, we will make sure, and I serve on that, and we'll make sure that the concept of active outreach and tying these together is brought up again as well at the Accessible Transportation Strategic Plan Policy Group. So moving on to a new item is to the next agenda item will be presented by Terry Ann to request nominations from the Authority Board to appoint a member and an alternate member to the San Joaquin Joint Powers Authority Board. Terry Ann.
Good evening again, Chair and Commissioners. Tonight I bring to you another action item. This is routine. It's to appoint a board member and alternate board member to the San Joaquin Joint Powers Authority Board. The JPA was formed under Assembly Bill 1779 in September of 2012. In November 2018, we appointed Commissioner Romick to serve as the board member and Commissioner Hudson to serve as the alternate board member. Since then, Commissioner Romick has represented the authority and has been thoroughly engaged. However, since his term on the authority board ended on December 8th, he could no longer serve on the San Joaquin JPA board in accordance with their joint exercise of powers agreement, which states that the board member and the alternate shall be a member of the board of directors of a regional transportation agency that serves Contra Costa County. The San Joaquin Intercity Passenger Rail Service has stops in Contra Costa. This includes Antioch, Martinez, and Richmond. The benefits of having authority representation on the board includes the opportunity for us to advocate for service improvements at both the state and federal levels and expansions, including additional stops in the county. overall performance review, and the ability to gauge those who live in the county and use these services. The term lasts as long as the board member and alternates serve as a commissioner or commissioner alternate on the authority board. The board meets bi-monthly in altering locations along the San Joaquin corridor. Currently that is virtual, but that will, who knows when that will end, and it will go back to meeting in person. They do determine the location of the prior board meeting, and the options that we have for consideration this evening are to appoint alternate member Hudson as the primary member and appoint a new alternate. Commissioner Hudson has expressed interest in serving as the primary member. We can appoint a new primary member and keep alternate member Hudson as the alternate, or we can appoint a new member and a new alternate member. So I'll now open it up for discussion and nominations and take any questions that you may have.
Okay, I think that Commissioner Hudson had his hand up first, and then Commissioner Glover.
Yeah, I would just
And
say
then-
that I would very much like to have this seat. I've been the alternate for federal, the alternate for Don Tatson. I'm now the alternate for Kevin Romick. I've been to the meeting in Sacramento. I've been to the meeting on Zoom. I've read all the materials since 2018. And I'm now going to be back on the Valley Link, which is also part of the San Joaquin Rail. I think the bigger issue is, though, you really have to decide as we do this, whether or not we're going to pick a sitting member or an alternate. And that's more of a protocol issue that I think is going to determine the direction we take over several years. If I'm not capable in somebody's mind to do this, I would just remind you, in the last 12 years, I've chaired this authority twice, but I will leave it at that, and I will respectfully ask for your vote.
Thank you, Commissioner Hudson. And then Commissioner Glover, I believe you were next.
Thank you. And Dave, I appreciate, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. And Dave, I appreciate your commitment to this agency. And certainly I know that you served up under me as well as Don. One of the things I was being suggestive of, or would be suggestive of, is that we do have an alternate within the authority who is Diane Burgess, and she represents, you know, that area that's very important in Keene. And so I wanted to see if you would allow that she would serve as the primary and that you would continue up in the alternate capacity, since this does have impacts within the area that she represents.
Well, I would be opposed to it, federal. It's, I know what's going on. Well, it's not my turn to.
Commissioner Arnerich, you had your hand up next.
Yeah, I was just weighing in, whoever we pick for this. Historically, we always have sitting board members serve in any of these committees. And the simple reason is the body of knowledge that that person possesses on a monthly basis when they represent us at those meetings and bring that information back is up to speed. If we have an alternate almost rarely ever shows up to any of our meetings or participates. So when they actually go, and that's why historically we've never had our board member alternates serve as primary, because they really don't have the knowledge and they don't report to us and they don't interact with us. And so while, you know, whomever this alternate might be may have a vested interest, the primary interest of us making appointments is to have our board members do this, and fine to have alternates. So I would just advocate that. I think that's higher a level of concern than who that individual is. Doesn't make any difference to me who it is, but I really think it should only be board members that are sitting in these primary seats.
Well, and I could appreciate the fact that that's the will and maybe the desire of the body. But what I am saying is that someone who has vested interest in it because of the makeup of the district is important also. And those persons would be engaged in that certain committee or authority in which they're serving on. So I'm not trying to go against policy. I'm just saying that where there's vested interest, and that is a alternate appointment to this commission, I'm just looking at it that way. I don't want to go against the will of the body, but at the same time, I'm trying to put it out there that when there's vested interest, a lot of times you're going to get more go. And I think that there's a grant that's looking at that particular area. If I'm wrong, Randy, could you correct me? I'm not sure.
We do not currently have a grant. We have a study extending the transit options down the median of State Route 4, an option to extend the transit down State Route 4, but I don't know of any other grant that we have out in East County.
Okay, just the study. Okay. Well, I'm going to make the nomination of Diane Burgess and Dave as the alternate, and see where it goes.
White second.
Okay, and then and Commissioner Hudson has self-nominated.
Yes.
And
I'll
so,
nominate him.
okay, so a second. So, and did you have an alternate recommendation on that? Because, I mean, we don't have to do it that way, but Commissioner Glover has done his nomination and got a second on a primary alternate. And so Deborah had her hand up first, Commissioner Allen.
Yes, so I guess the first question is, am I allowed to make a nomination as a ex officio?
No, thank you. I was just going to clarify that. They have to be, the nominations have to be by a voting member for the motion and the second.
Okay, and okay. So I did have a couple things to say about this, though. I also am very involved as a BART director. I was following very closely the Valley Link project, and I know that Dave is going to go on to that project as well. It's a very important project. It has connectivity to San Joaquin, and so I see connectivity and vested interest there. I hope that someday that goes all, Valley Link goes all the way around to EBART, but that's just one of my dreams for the future. So from my perspective, I really think that the amount of time and energy that Dave has put in to serving as an alternate on this body, that really shows his interest and his investment in this. But aside from that, so I am hoping that we will move forward and allow the person that has sat for an alternate for so long on that body and knows so much about it that we will appoint him to represent us on that board. So the second thing, though, I wanted to just mention is I also have a vested interest in that. I'm also a Capitol Corridor board member, and I would love to be able to serve as the alternate to Dave on that body if I was able to, and I'm not even really sure whether you're able to appoint an ex officio to that seat. If you were, I'm very interested in it. Again, my nexus is to not only BART, a train, Valley Link, a train, and Capitol Corridor, a train, but I also have business interests in East Contra Costa County, and I do have a very strong vested interest in that area, as well as my seat serves the Martinez area. So that I'm just going to leave that there. You'll probably tell me no, but I do want to point out that in Alameda County, the BART director actually is a voting member of the ACTC. And so that may be something we should perhaps discuss in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Allen. And Terry Ann, did you want to respond before I call on Vice Chair Kelly?
Yeah, so I'm actually going to tell you yes this time. So Don Tatson served as a representative on the board. So they only specify that it has to be a member of the board of directors. They don't specify, from what I recall, whether you have to be a voting or a non-voting member. So representatives can be appointed to serve on this body as well as a voting member.
Okay. So Vice Chair Kelly.
Yeah, I would just like to, if we need a nomination, I'd like to nominate Dave Hudson to be the board member. I think he's got the experience here, and we certainly would like to have him report back to us and keep us informed as to what is going on. So I would nominate Dave Hudson.
Look, this is something that I, it's not a fight that needs to be had. If Mr. Hudson is so inclined to be in that position, I think that the nexus that I was trying to make makes a lot of sense. But I'm certainly not going to put Diane's name before you, and that it's not going to be supported. And so I will withdraw my nomination.
Thank you. Excuse me. Thank you, Commissioner Glover. And I see Commissioner Wilson has her hand up.
I'm not nominating. I'm not nominating myself, but I think at least one of those positions, at the very least, should come from East County, since there is, I believe, the Amtrak stop was talked about. So can we at least have the alternate come from East Contra Costa? I just want to make that statement, or at least somebody that represents East Contra Costa.
Thank you. And I apologize on my rules of order, but Commissioner Glover removed his motion, and Commissioner White, are you in support of that as well as the second?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So that motion is off the table. So what we do have right now is a nomination, or that nomination. We have a nomination, Commissioner Arnridge.
I would just on that very point that Monica Wilson just said, and to my dear friend Deborah Allen, congratulations getting elected again. I think because Diane Burgess really wants to do this. Dave's done the homework. I think that's the right choice. I think we ought to, in this case, get an East County representative, have Diane Burgess be the alternate. Dave does this for the year or 2 years, whatever the appointment is, and Diane is right there. She's up to speed. And I think, and so I would make that nomination.
Second, White.
Okay, thank you. Is there any further discussion on this item? And if anyone from the public would like to weigh in on this item, please raise your hand. Terry Ann, do we have anyone?
I don't see any public comment. I think on the motion made by Vice.
Sorry.
Oh, sorry. The motion that was made by Vice Chair Kelly to nominate Hudson as the primary. Do we have a second on that?
Me.
Yes, Haskew.
Okay. And then we have a second one made by Commissioner Arnridge to appoint Burgess as the alternate, and that was seconded by Commissioner White.
Yes.
Correct.
Okay. And I'm sorry, Commissioner Hudson, you wanted to speak.
Yeah, I know this is going to sound a little silly, but Diane Burgess isn't here. You're sure she wants to do this, right?
Yes.
I mean, it's okay.
Those are the best kinds of appointments.
I was sure that.
Well, you had someone else that went, okay.
I was sure that she wanted to be the primary. So.
Going with it. I mean.
And anyway, there's a motion before us.
Okay.
Okay. So any other comments before we ask Terry Ann to call the vote? And Terry Ann, would you state again what we are asking people to vote on, just so that there's clarity?
Yes, and is it okay if we combine this as just as one action? Okay.
I believe so.
So we have two motions, one action. made by Vice Chair Kelly, seconded by Commissioner Haskew to appoint the primary member of Dave Hudson. And then we have another motion under this action made by Commissioner Arnrich, seconded by Commissioner White to appoint Commissioner Alternate Burgess as the alternate member. And I'll go ahead and
Thank you.
do the vote now. Commissioner Arnrich.
Thank you.
Yes.
Commissioner Butt,
Yes.
Commissioner Glover,
Yes.
Commissioner Haskew,
Yes.
Commissioner Hudson,
Yes.
Commissioner Mitchell,
Yes.
Commissioner Thorpe,
Aye.
Commissioner White,
Yes.
Vice Chair Kelly,
Yes.
Chair Geringer.
I'm going to recuse myself because I actually work for one of the nominees, the alternate.
Okay, motion passes unanimously with Commissioner Nowak absent and Chair Geringer abstaining.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So thank you very much and congratulations, Commissioner Hudson, and thank you for the service that you've already provided. And I know the great service that you'll provide going forward on the authority, on the JPA. Okay, so so the next item is moves us on to item number 10, correspondence and communications. And you will have noticed that the authority's cover story article in the Engineering News Record magazine is included in the packet. Are there any comments on this item? Seeing no hands, we will move on to the next item, which is the associated committee reports. Again, those reports are all included in the packet. Any questions or comments? Moving to the next is chair comments and reports. And I just wanted very briefly to say thank you to all of the commissioners for your support during my first meeting as chair. But most importantly, I want to say thank you to Terry Ann and Randy for making themselves, and our new executive director, Tim, for making themselves available to make sure that we were prepared for this very full agenda. And I also, again, want to just say that I'm excited to work with Tim Hale and the rest of the staff going into 2021. And also, as others have commented, we have not only a new executive director, but new makeup of the authority board. And I'm very excited about the work that we'll be doing in 2021. And of course, this is a very sort of bittersweet meeting. We have had lots of new things and moving forward, but that means that this is Randy Iwasaki's last meeting. And I know that we'll have lots of opportunities to, I know people, just as there were party dancing and dance hands, I know who's that? As we quickly forget. But anyway, yeah. Anyway, we'll have an opportunity, I know, to roast or toast or celebrate Randy in other forums, but just wanted to acknowledge Randy, my gratitude and appreciation to you for, I'm one of the newest, well, before tonight, I was one of the newest or shortest serving commissioners. And I just want to thank you for your mentorship along the way. And also, I wasn't here back before you came on board, but I think it's fair to say, based on all of the accolades that you've received for your bringing this Peace Shooter organization forward, that you're leaving us better than you found us. And so thank you very much. And that's my chair's report. Moving on to messages from commissioners and ex officio representatives. Any comments from commissioners?
About Randy or
comments,
anything?
Or just in general? We can start here if you'd like to make comments about Randy.
Get in trouble.
Commissioner Glover.
Of course, if any. Yes, Commissioner Glover.
Thank you. I first want to welcome our new commissioners. This is a very exciting agency, and certainly over the last decade. I remember when we hired Randy and when we were doing the interview process, that was really exciting time to get someone that had viewed transportation and transportation issues on a statewide level. And to get him to come to Contra Costa was really something that I was very excited about and glad that I could say that I was a part of that hiring process. With Gomentum and the work on autonomous vehicles and all the other drivers that's been brought our way has really put Concord, California and CCTA on the map for all the possibilities that we have as we continue to develop. Not sure that I will be able to make the roast, but Randy, I want to tell you how much I appreciate your work and the pride that I think that you brought to Contra Costa at large. I know that all the commissioners that have worked with you really hold you in high esteem, and we know that regardless of where you were representing this agency, whether it was in Sacramento, Washington, D.C., or in your travels across the world and delivering messages in terms of the great things that we're doing here in Concord, California. So I really want to just appreciate the value that you brought to the agency. And to say to Tim, big shoes, but you've been mentored and trained under the best, and we know that you're going to do well and keep the legacy moving forward. So once again, Randy, we appreciate you so much, and I know you will probably be visiting with us again in some capacity, and whatever your future endeavors are.
Okay. Thank you, Commissioner Glover. So any other comments from commissioners? I'm looking around. Any comments from representatives?
It's all Commissioner Arnridge.
Okay.
All Representative Worth, and I thought there was a third, but I see two for sure.
Okay. I don't see a photo actually even for Commissioner Arnridge. Commissioner Worth, did you want to say something? Oh, there, now I see his photo.
Okay, great. Thank you, Madam Chair. Well, I just, first of all, I want to welcome the new commissioners to the authority tonight and look forward to working with you on the regional issues that are impacting all of our communities. And I know that East County has been a very important part of the work we've done in the Transportation Authority and also at MTC. And I know, I just want to begin by just saying what a joy it has been and an honor to work with Randy. I know that Federal and I have both really appreciated his support, his leadership on the regional stage. Right. And some of you may know that Randy's first magic that he did when he came on board was to deliver those the second set of direct connectors for from the bridge 160 out at highway, in East County onto Highway 4. And that, because that was such a priority issue, and the regional leadership really wanted to welcome him to the fold and knew that this was a high priority for him and for Contra Costa County. And of course, we were able to build those connector ramps that have been such an important investment in terms of mobility in East County. But I just really wanted to thank Randy. He has brought so much to the region. He knew his way around before he was at CCTA. And before he became director of Caltrans, he was the District 4 director. So he knew all the ways around and all the places, the ways to get things done. And he gave Federal and me tremendous support in our efforts on behalf of Contra Costa County. So I just really want to thank you, Randy, from the bottom of my heart, and know how fortunate we were in having you as our executive director, both within Contra Costa County, but also from this perspective around the region. You were just absolutely tremendous, so highly regarded by your colleagues. And, you know, I know your mentorship of Tim it will be invaluable to our organization, and that same regional perspective will be strong and highly regarded. So thank you again, and best wishes. And again, can't thank you enough.
You're welcome. Thank you.
And then Newell.
Thank you. I'm going to leave my words for Randy. We'll roast him on Friday at the event. So the heck with you, Randy. I just want to personally add my thanks and to both Holland and Lamar. It's exciting to see some new faces. Looking forward to hearing your voices. And, you know, a lot of exciting things that this little tiny agency has done. And it's just exciting to see some new people. And both Luella and Teresa are just so glad to not be the newbies anymore. So welcome aboard, guys. Looking forward to it.
Thank you. And then Terry Ann, do you see anyone else?
I do not see any other hands.
Okay, so I guess that is without further ado, we will go on to the executive staff comments. And so Randy, please provide your report.
Commissioners, I did a quick calculation, 10 years. Meetings, but I was not, I didn't show up to one. I missed one. So I had 116 board meetings, which is 116 executive directors. And so the good news, you won't have to hear me reporting out anymore. I'll be on the sidelines, but I thought I'd mention a couple of things first. The Focus on the Future conference, we hosted a roundtable with some officials talking about the election and what can we expect, or what are the predictions in the future for the federal program. And I think this is very important because I think Commissioner Hudson refers to our dinner at Morton's after a very, very packed day of meeting with modal administrators and elected officials on the Hill and near Navy Yard. And so we pack all this in. Why? Because we want to get FaceTime with the chairman of the T&I committee. We want to get FaceTime with the Federal Highway Administrator. We want to get FaceTime with the Secretary's office. And we do that. And we did that year after year for 10 years. So included in the 116 board meetings, there's at least one trip every year to Washington. And it's a packed day. We've pushed Commissioner Abelson up and down the Capitol Hill when her motorized wheelchair wasn't there the first day. And I remember Peter and I were taking turns, and it must have been 102 degrees. And boy, we went to everybody's office, and we were kind of on the sweaty side. But I think that's paid dividends over the years, and there's opportunity when they update that surface transportation bill for Contra Costa transportation officials to get in there and talk about regulation reform, talk about if there's going to be earmarks, get your earmarks ready. And so I think these roundtables with ARTBA, the American Road and Transportation Builders Association, very strong lobbying firm. Dave Bauer is now the CEO. He used to be, I think, the COO, and we've been a member of ARTBA for a number of years, at least for sure since I've been here. And so we have some mouthpieces, if you will, in Washington, D.C., and Lindsay does a great job, and you've got a great federal program laid out. So pay attention to that. On a local level, MTC has some dollars that they found. So every year the federal money isn't spent all over the United States. Why? Because it's so darn difficult to spend federal money. And in the old days, it was a partnership between the state and the feds. And now it's becoming, oh my God, I got federal money. Can you swap me measure money for your federal money? Because it's so hard to spend. And so we've talked to the feds about direct allocations from USDOT directly to CCTA, because our theory is when you send the dollars to the state has to hire somebody to take those dollars and then put the package together and send it to MTC. MTC has to hire two people to put the package together and send the money after they scrape off the discretionary money and send it to us. And So here we're left with whatever we get. And so I think there's some great opportunity. There's language about pilot programs on the allocations. I think you ought to take a hard look at that. I think that will make you money in the future. And then along the education side, you know, I'm a really simple guy. We've always gone with 4 goals. We talk about change. We talk about succession planning, internal communication, and teamwork. And it's very, very important. I think the board has always kind of adopted that, making sure that the new board members, and congratulations to the new board members. Sorry, Commissioner White, that I left too early to work with you for a long period of time. I think we would have taught each other a lot of good stuff. And to all the commissioners, but I think it's important, and what makes me very proud is that, and there's some qualified people on our team that can lead any organization now, and so that's really satisfying to me. So along the lines of education, as you know, we're going to, that darn locomotive shuttle is in the port of Los Angeles, and we're trying to get it up here to do a ribbon cutting or a groundbreaking on getting those kids at Pittsburgh High School excited about working on the next generation of technology. I'm not sure it's going to make it. So hopefully I get invited back when I'm a regular citizen to at least shake a few hands on that event. But the last item that I wrote on my executive director's report is leadership Contra Costa. So when called, we've always made presentations, and it's a number of your staff and from your cities, the county, and we always try to have them exposed to the possibilities, imagine the possibilities. And when we're done, they say, how do you do that? I said, we have a great board, we have a very supportive board, we have a great staff, and we work together. And so I'll leave you with that. I think that over the 10 years that I've been here, we've worked very, very closely. Haven't always agreed. 99% of the time we agreed. That's why I took the job. I think the commissioners that were on the hiring panel, I said, yes, I know you checked me out. I know you called references, but I also checked you out. You remember I said that. You guys vote 11-0, you vote 10-1. So that tells me either you're all in lockstep with everybody, every single meeting, or the discussions are done in the back room. And I can live with that. And so thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, Randy. And with that, your calendars are, I could once again ask if there are comments, but I'm going to continue through to the calendars are provided in your packet. We will now adjourn to our next regular meeting proposed for January 20th, 2021. Happy holidays to everyone. And yes, there is an event I think everybody got invitations to, so we'll see many of us at that on Friday. So with that, we are adjourned.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Merry Christmas.
Yeah, yes.